Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, this is me crawling through some of the grass. Locke, if you want to put like some green screen grass effect, go ahead and do that because I'm Solid Snake, baby. Today we're talking about Metal Gear Solid 3. Funny timing that. We're doing kind of what we did with Silent Hill 2, where we're just shooting in the dark based off rumors and hoping we land a pretty well-timed video today because the MGS3 remake, it's real. Is the game really that good? Does it really deserve that remake? The answer is yes, but this game, I think, is celebrated for its story. But when it comes to gameplay, after going back to it for this video, I am thrilled it is getting a remake because it's so fantastic in every other way. But some of the gameplay, most, is very clunky. And I'd like to just talk in general about the product, my Metal Gear experience, and just celebrate the franchise. It's great to see Konami back and involved in AAA game development. We, of course, have things like the Suikoden collection on the way, which I'm also very excited about. We're getting things like the Castlevania collection. So they've been getting into the mix a little bit more, reactivating those IP, and I'm very curious to see what they do next. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here, you're into nostalgic and retrospective content, consider subscribing. Let's begin, as always, with the complete box experience. So we've got the HD collection, and then we've got Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, which was the re-release after the original MGS3 Snake Eater. This is the one with some bonus content. The best place to play is right here on PlayStation Vita. You unfortunately cannot download this game right now because Konami said that the historical videos that you'll find in the cutscenes of this game had to have licenses renewed, so they currently cannot sell the product. And the timing is mighty interesting because now they got a remake. Reminds me a bit of Dead Space, where, you know, they did the FPS boost for Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3, but the game that was getting a remake, Dead Space 1, didn't get FPS boost on Xbox Series consoles. Strange that, but anyway, this is my favorite place to play it. It's actually, when I played these games for the first time in the early days of college around 2014, that's when I got to them. I was late to the MGS party, my personal favorite being Metal Gear Solid 2. I love that game. Metal Gear Solid 3 I also love, but 2 I just have great memories with. But this is where I played it. 2 legendary Metal Gear Solid games in the ultimate handheld experience, plus MGS2 VR missions, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. And then you crack it open, yep, nothing. But happy to have it because, again, I think this is the best place to play it. And then we've got the actual copy here for PlayStation 2 for Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. Love this box art. The back of the box says, Metal Gear goes online. In Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence, players can battle or team up with 7 other friends for online dominance, featuring addicting online gameplay modes and a new 3D camera. Subsistence is the game that gives players a brand new Metal Gear experience, with all new online gameplay, including deathmatch, team deathmatch, sneaking mission, capture mission, and rescue mission. The complete Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater game with new user-controlled 3D camera includes never-before-released games Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, secret theater mode, duel mode, and new stages for Snake vs. Monkey minigame, and game connectivity with Metal Gear Acid 2 on PSP. So yeah, a lot going on here in this re-release. As you can see, multiple discs going on here. But most importantly is the manual, which is a little disappointing. Black and white here, but it goes through the controls as you would expect for starting, and you'll need this because the controls in Metal Gear Solid 3 are a little bit confusing. I won't lie, they're just a little jank. We'll talk about that in a little bit. They go through what each disc has on it, and camera views obviously being a very big deal. It goes through some of the survival stuff that's in this game, the combat where you can interrogate people, you can grab them, you can use them as a shield, etc., etc. And then disc 2, Persistence, in an all new online mode, the return of Snake versus Monkey, and versions of the original Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, the games that started it all. And then it goes through creating a network configuration because that was all new really back then. And then back here, Metal Gear Acid 2 Promotion, which I know a lot of people aren't really favorable on Metal Gear Acid. I haven't played those games, but anyway, that is a complete in-box copy of Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. And now let's talk about Snake Eater, of course, because this is the game that's getting the remake, and I am very excited because after going back to it, I gotta say, it's super worthy of a remake. I know for many people this is like one of your favorite games of all time, so I'm not dunking on it, but I do want to say that Firing it up, there is a steep learning curve with the controls because of how dated they are. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's say you, the gamer, want to aim your gun. Nowadays, it's hold L2 or L1, and that readies the weapon, and then R1 or R2 is to fire off, right? Simple. In this game, it's hold R1, aim with the left stick, and then shoot with square. And it's terrible, to be quite frank. However, I think it was almost by design because everything in this game requires thought. Even when you want to contact someone for help, you turn on the radio tuner, you find the right frequency, and if you want to talk to specific people, you got to have the right frequency so you can call them and get advice on battle strategies or where you are right now. I really appreciate its amount of thought put into it. And I know just based off how Kojima makes his games, I could definitely see this being intentionally clunky to make you think about when you really want to aim, when you really want to shoot, because even things like crouch walking in the grass, which are staples in modern stealth design, is not a thing here. You are either crawling in the grass on your stomach, or you are crouched in the grass standing still. Because a lot of the stealth in this game is built around blending. And I really like that. Like, you'll pause your game, you'll change your camouflage for your face paint, for your outfit, and it'll change the percentage on the top right corner of the screen to pretty much hide you more and more. Nowadays, stealth is what I call a little bit more invisible. Are you in a shadow? Are you in the dark? Are you above your enemy and they just somehow don't have the peripheral vision to see you? Congrats, you're doing a stealth thing in a game. But in this game, I like how, again, methodical it is. So I feel like the clunky controls are part of the experience for people, but there's no doubt that in a modernized take, we can retain the spirit of that and still have something really special here. Even things like the exposition in the beginning. The story setup here is awesome because it's built off real world events. It's about a Cold War ongoing. There's tension between Russia and the United States, and Snake is invading Russia effectively. If he's caught, the US is saying, you're on your own. Like, we're not going to claim you at all. You're dead. And I love the tension there because it feels palpable. It feels believable. It reminds me of how I feel about Fallout. Like, Fallout is this super ridiculous universe where when you shoot enemies, they blow up into little bits. However, based off the way the lore was established between this resource war and the way China and the US were at odds with each other, it feels like I can buy into it. So the same thing is happening here with Metal Gear, and that's what makes you get invested. But even in the starting of this game, there's a lot of JRPG sensibilities, like the little camera angles, the edgy flick of the cigar by Snake, all the way down to just philosophy dumps on you from boss to Snake. I just love how unapologetically Japanese in style the game is, where it takes those almost JRPG-like tropes but packs them into this more action stealth game. It feels like a weird fit of a ton of things happening at once, but that's what, again, makes a Kojima game a Kojima game. However, those moments where you're taking a knee and you're listening to boss talk about what a soldier is, what it means to be a soldier, is great stuff. But I feel like in a modern game, for example, me crouch walking through some tall grass and hearing her talk to you about this stuff is the way that this stuff would be delivered now. Since BioShock 1, it really changed how audio delivers the story while you go off and do something else. So I feel like that's something that we're going to get in a remake. I'm curious just how faithful it's going to end up being. But these were little things that I think immediately, even the biggest fans, upon firing it back up and just really grounding yourselves and realizing, yeah, this is an amazing video game that's hurt by PS2 era controls, where no one really had one perfect control scheme or another. We were still figuring that stuff out, where nowadays it's pretty expected, if you were to play a third-person stealth game like Metal Gear Solid, that the shooting controls would not be holding R1, aiming with the left stick and pressing square. It'd be something else. Now, don't get me wrong, you do get used to this stuff. I remember distinctly having the same issue. I fired up MGS2, I fired up MGS3. I'm playing these games, I'm like, what are these controls? You do get used to it, but you'll even see in my own gameplay, there are moments I look like I've never picked up a controller before. There is a learning curve to it all, and it makes stealth difficult. I think the toughest one for me was either just lying down and crawling through the grass, because then you go into first person and you can only see so far in front of you, which is awesome. Again, very much immersive qualities. We'll talk about it in a moment. But I want to be able to see and be stealthy, and it's really hard to get methodical like that when you can barely see in front of you. But that immersive element is what makes the game special. So as you're going around, like they say, you got to survive. They immediately introduce the survival mechanics. So things like shooting a snake and skinning it and eating it while you're out there restore your stamina, and that's obviously extremely important to surviving while you're out on this mission. So the immersive qualities here, again, going back to the stealth and changing your camouflage, is what makes it really cool. But as you've noticed, I've sort of sidestepped the story for a lot of this video. The reason for that is when we do some of these more, hey, a remake got announced retrospectives, I don't want to spoil things for a lot of folks because I feel like it's extremely important that you get to experience that on your own. I got to experience MGS2 and MGS3 completely unspoiled, and it was amazing, especially MGS3 being a very personal tale, because while the number would suggest one thing, MGS3 is the beginning of Snake's story. It's the actual start of it. Now, this is already a problem with the Metal Gear Solid series. Like, you get MGS4, which is the end of Snake's story, but then you get 5, which takes place, I think, before or after Peace Walker, which is on PSP, which is like a middle of the timeline game. It's a super confusing release order, but MGS3 is perfect for the remake because it is the start of Snake's story, effectively. And it is a very personal tale at that really connects you to Snake. It makes you care about Snake. Now, for me, as a big old Raiden fanboy, where I love Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, I love MGS2. I love the story of Jack the Ripper. And you want to talk about a philosophy dump that has aged extremely well. Just trust me, bro, kind of moment here. Get to the end of MGS2 and tell me your mind will not be blown. I mean, it is insane. I mean, I know some people have already reposted the clip before, so you might have seen it, but to me, I think at times Kojima gets away with a lot of weird things in his games that no one else would ever get away with. But this is one of those moments where I'm like, I get the GOAT status for him. There are moments, though, where I truly don't. And I think he gets the benefit of the doubt because he makes very weird games with a high budget. And we don't get that because games are usually risky. Like, for all I could criticize Kojima for, he's the only dude who can make something like Death Stranding, a game that admittedly I have not played yet, but it doesn't look super appealing to me, but people continue to tell me give it a shot. But this kind of, if you will, and I know some people say, well, it's not just that, bro, but this FedEx simulator where you're delivering packages, you're creating roads, you're connecting people. I just find that so fascinating that he could get away with making something like that on a AAA level just because of namesake. But Metal Gear is where he really made his bones, and Metal Gear Solid 3, no doubt, is one of the most celebrated, one of the most popular in the entire franchise. And to see it coming back is super exciting because the boss fights in this game, this is what I meant by JRPG sensibilities. I know for a lot of folks, they'll probably raise an eyebrow at that. Like, well, any game can have that heavy exposition in the beginning, but that to me is a JRPG thing. The dialogue and the heavy philosophy-driven characters, that's a JRPG thing. And then boss fights at big moments in the story that play out the way they do in this game just reminded me again of a JRPG. Maybe it's the way I just personally connected to it, but I will say there's one boss, and we won't show gameplay for it because I don't want to spoil it for y'all, but I'll just say there is a boss called The End that is one of my personal favorites because it's a very stealth-driven boss, which is super unique on its own, and you're almost playing cat and mouse with them. But the problem with that boss back then is there were so many loading screens and it could get confusing, but it just, in the terms of an idea, like how you concept that was fascinating. So again, to have that in a remake is going to be super exciting. Am I a diehard MGS fan? No, I've never had a strong connection to Kojima's games, quite frankly, just outside of MGS2. Like even MGS3, I would say, yes, it's really that good, but did I have this strong connection with it like I see so many fans do? No, definitely not. I think there are very particular games from him that stand out to me, but there's no doubt that he's an exciting creator to watch. You know, I think of Boktai over on, I think it was the Game Boy Advance, where it had the little solar panel pretty much built into the cartridge, and you would have to play the game at certain times of the day to fight vampires, which was really cool. Or I think of now how he's exploring a relationship with Xbox for a game called Overdose, which is going to be a cloud-based game. And that's exciting because when Kojima's handed these new tools, he just finds something unique to make. And that's what makes his games so alluring. When he gets that PlayStation partnership, he makes something like Death Stranding. So, you know, very celebrated creator. And this is, I think, really where things started to blow up big time for MGS and for its popularity and where people established that true connection with the game. But for many people, it was much earlier than this. But of course, with these moments I'm talking about with exposition, I don't think I'm giving enough credit to the cutscenes. Very extra, very over the top. I'm talking about Ocelot just spinning his pistols and firing them off. It's hilarious, but there is a charm to it all. There's a lot of personality in these cutscenes, and they're long. Make no mistake, if you've played and beat MGS4, you know what I'm talking about. They can be very long because Kojima has made it no secret he's a movie fan. And that's where one of my little critiques slides in. You should be aware of this if you've never played a Kojima game or you're not familiar with Metal Gear, is he lets his love of movies really slip into his games, and especially with MGS4 at the end, and especially something like Death Stranding from what I've seen. There are moments where people are just thinking, bro, go make a movie and just get it out of your system and then come back to games, where he tries to meld the two, but not a lot of developers try to do that. Typically when we see the melding of movie and game, it's Michael Bay. It's not what Kojima does, where he works with really well-known actors, really well-known directors to choreograph very special cutscenes in his video games. But you can see his love for movies in the way he shoots cutscenes. And so all of this comes together to a very unique experience that I think people are going to appreciate. But is MGS3 that good? Yeah, definitely. And you should be at least interested, I think, in this remake. Would you want to go back and play even the HD remaster? I would say hold up, because again, the controls to me really can hurt this experience. Will you adaptively get used to it? Yes, I did the same thing almost 10 years ago now. But going back to it again, I'm just like, thank God it's getting a remake. So those are my thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 3 in this timely video. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. What do you think of Metal Gear Solid 3? Fire away down below. Other than that, I look forward to seeing your thoughts, and I will catch you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.